Okay, good morning. We're about a minute before. Let me go close my door. We are about a minute before start time, maybe 30 seconds now. I'll just get started right now because we're live over here in our Facebook room. We should be. Over here. There I am. Okay. Welcome to day 3 of the Summer Sleep Challenge with Coach Vic. Also, I didn't say thank you yesterday, and I just want to say it again today. Thank you for your interest and for being here. I want to deliver to you what you need to help get your sleep back on track. And I can do that if you address questions. It doesn't have to be here if you're not live here or not watching live on Facebook. Even if it's a replay on Facebook, you can put questions in the comments. I'll receive those and I can address them the next day. And likewise, any of your emails, just reply directly from the email and I can answer those questions like I did yesterday, which this person, kind of the theme of yesterday ended up being too much activity late in the day. We talked about the evening routine. We went over the sleep prep checklist, but with respect to an evening routine, what you didn't see on there was working out, having a late dinner. You know, it said actually the opposite stuff. So we want to watch those things. Okay, I'm 62. And there may be people younger than me on this call. There may be people older than me on this call. But I'll just say that when you start approaching, like a woman starting perimenopause, where our hormones are changing, if your sleep is not dialed in, and what we're going to talk about today is the 2 hormones related to this, those could be the biggest regulators, the 2 hormones related to sleep, and it could affect, you know, your ease or not ease of going through menopause, between hot flashes and everything else that you might experience. So I'll say that at the beginning of my perimenopause was before I addressed 5, you know, I was 45. 5 years before I started addressing my health like I do today. I think I would have had more of a challenge than I ultimately did. So I pretty much sailed through my menopause, and I you know, had some hot flashes. There were some things I could definitely tell. What I felt like is I could tell when my estrogen would drop, I would have more symptoms, and when my body would adapt to that because I did nothing to alter that. I don't take hormones that way. I understand some women do, and I have had some clients who have had issues. We can't say for certain that their breast cancer were because of the hormones, but there is research that supports that. So anyhow, sleep is huge for all regulation of all hormones, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. So again, remember your questions, ask them if you have any in the way I mentioned. And so I want to start today with a little story that seems it's unrelated to sleep, with the exception of that it does involve a bed. And I shared this story last year in my Summer Sleep Challenge. And actually, when I watched the replay, I wasn't sure how that went over, but as I watched the replay, I saw how it could tie in to all of this. When we're talking about making changes in our life, adding a morning routine, an evening routine, going through that sleep prep checklist and trying to make improvements in your life so that you do sleep better and feel better. That's the goal, right, for this challenge. So there was a story I heard some long time while back. It was a colonel addressing a graduating class, a military graduating class. And he got up there, and of course, you're probably thinking he's going to talk about, you know, their future and all of that. But what he says instead was, he asked by raise of hands, how many people here in this room make their bed every morning? And I'll ask you. And if you're live or anywhere else, you can put it in the chat, or if you're watching the replay, let me know. How many people make their bed every morning? So, and he tied that into how when we, you know, when we set in our brain, what our life is going to be like. And literally just one of those things is if you leave your room a mess and then go out to your day, that could translate into some disorganized thoughts. And maybe you didn't make your bed because you had to jump out of it because you pushed the snooze alarm 10 times, and we've all been there, right? So I'm bringing this up just to say that making your bed every day is one of those things that could trigger and or perpetuate more positive change in your life, like adding a morning routine, an evening routine, changing, for the person we talked about yesterday, changing, the time when you work out. That could be, I'm going to guess that she's had that in her schedule for a very long time, and to make a change, like where else do I put that in my day? But when we're talking about sleep and that lifestyle, that is going to be critical for this person to achieve the goal she wants to achieve, which is to get to bed earlier and get more hours of sleep. I think that's all she needs to do. And that's not saying that's easy, because the rest of her sleep seems very, at least according to her mattress. Okay, so I bring all of this up too to say I offer a class called a free master class called Change Your Habits, Change Your Life. Maybe some of you have been on that class or have seen my promos for it and are interested in maybe doing it. So I give little tricks like that in the class of ways to trigger change, because it all starts with getting out of the unconscious brain and into the conscious brain. So I'm going to challenge you as part of the sleep challenge that you make your bed every day, that starts the day, gets the brain organized, and perhaps even, it doesn't mean you can't go out and get the morning light, do your yoga coffee, drink your water, and then go back and make your bed. That's fine. Add that into your morning routine and you will feel organized. In addition, you come into bed at night with this freshly made bed. For me, I put lots of pillows on my bed, but I go through a ritual at night of taking the pillows off and, preparing my bed for sleep. And that could be another way in your evening routine that you do that early enough, say before your stretching, before your meditation, and that will actually, then you're ready to go into bed and you're not flipping on lights to see how you might have to prepare your bed for sleep. So oddball little thought, but just give that a try. That might be helpful for some of you. Today, we're going to talk about the hormone dance and what sleep has to do with weight loss. And it sounds, for some, I think it's out there in the news. If your cortisol levels are high, you might hold on to excess weight. We've heard those mainstream media, promo things. They talk about a study or a research study or whatnot, but I'm going to quickly go to slides and actually talk about this. And I've added, I've done some additional research that I don't have them in the slides because it's new information. Sorry, my computer's waking up. It must not have got a good night's sleep. There we go. Okay, so again, day 3, we're talking about the hormone dance and what does weight loss have to do with your sleep? So my 2 pups, Bolt and Sita, they really honor their circadian clock by getting out early morning sun. Now we've had every day this week, maybe tomorrow will be different because we're supposed to get a little warmer, but every day, gosh, I was gone for part of May, but since I've been back, we've had these really overcast mornings, which is, we do have June gloom here in California, but it's not always this many days in a row. So when I talk about early morning sun and how that coming through your even darkened shades can wake you up, that hasn't so much been the case at all. But as soon as that sun comes out, it's like my dogs just know, and they wait by the door. They want me to open it up, and they go out there and honor the sun, which is awesome. This is their morning routine. I mean, they do a lot throughout the day as well. Okay, I want to revisit the bio battery. Right here. And talk about when you have too many bio drainers in your life versus biochargers, what it can do to us, our body. So when we think about this bio battery, we're talking about the biological body. The human physical body is an energetic being that gets affected by external sources, and that what we have, where we can't sometimes control those external sources, we can control internal and make us more resilient to the external forces that are coming in and maybe creating havoc, that could create havoc. So when we look at this top rung, spiritually, physically, emotionally well balanced, there are people like that, but it's a very rare part of the population, especially when we're speaking about spiritually. Those are the gurus, those are the Deepak Chopras, the Dalai Lama, Buddha, Jesus, but it doesn't mean that humans here today can't be also physically and emotionally balanced as well as spiritually balanced. But this comes with no judgment. They are not led by their ego, they are led by their soul, and again, no judging. So the next rung down, vitality, honoring the 6 foundation health principles. This is a person who, it may not be that perfect body where you think the 6-pack abs and all of that stuff, because that isn't, I know more sick people that look like that than healthy people, believe it or not. And that's in large part because of a hormone imbalance between their cortisol and their melatonin, believe it or not. So, so here, we've got these top rungs, we've got health. The third one down is health principles, maybe a little out of balance. This could present like allergies. The next one down, again, anything down from here is going to be health principles out of balance. And the degree that you're talking about a condition, that's how little those principles are honored. But fungal and parasite infections are very common when your diet's out of balance. You might be drinking tap water, so you're getting a lot of, there's a lot of these bio drainers going on when you end up with fungal and parasite infections. And that could also be a person who they're not under exercising, they might be over exercising. They might look like that physical 6-pack person, but they have other issues going on. Next, the longer you don't address those issues, like the fungal and parasite infections, which is part of my program. By the way, once I get clients honoring the 6 foundation health principles, and we look into nutrient levels and other issues in their life that should improve just by honoring the 6 foundation health principles, we can look into these other things. But if you don't address, say, allergies, fungal and parasite infection, you end up with metabolic issues. And this is also translating like chronic pain and fatigue, lots of medicine use. If you don't look at those things and try to get to the root cause, which is going to take you back up the battery, then you end up here, cancer, autoimmune. Still not too late to address the root cause and get back up the battery. Once you're bedridden, though, I'm going to still say it's not too late, but most people are ready to meet their maker, and then death. And like I said yesterday, we're all going to die. It's how we get there. So, and never giving up, never giving up. Consider these biochargers. Screenshot this page if you want, and just think about this, okay? This is part of your homework, but I did want to elaborate a little bit more on that bio battery. Okay, so let's talk about our 2 hormones and what it has to do with weight loss. Melatonin is a natural hormone that's produced in the pineal gland. It's kind of known as the dark darkness hormone, but darkness and even orange, it prompts the pineal gland to start producing melatonin, and light stops it. That's why I said, cortisol is fast acting hormone. You get light on the skin or in your eyes, and it's reversing that melatonin production. Time of the day, season of the year, all those things affect our body clock. And I want to elaborate a little bit more on melatonin. The study at a PubMed study. It was first isolated in the pineal gland, but I'm also going to talk about how there is a greater percentage of melatonin production in the gut. This was really news to me. And that'll relate back to nutrition, which we're going to talk about tomorrow. But as the biological roles of melatonin were widely studied, the recognized therapeutic effects and health benefits of melatonin could cover a broad range. Melatonin can regulate human physiological rhythm, alleviate related disorders like jet lag, insomnia, and scavenge free radical species, which create disease in the body. Enhance the immune systems. It shows for anti-aging and anti-inflammatory effects. It performs anti-cancer activities. It has neuroprotective effects that facilitate the control of chronic diseases such as cardiovascular disease, diabetes, obesity, and it's also a mood regulator. Helps with sex. Again, it's a hormone, so we want these two hormones balanced. That'll affect our sex hormones as well. On and on and on and on. And so, let's see, notes here. Melatonin in the gut. And I'll mention too that melatonin has been, like kind of in summary, has been well known as a potent antioxidant, anti-inflammatory factor, and immune modulator. It also contributes to regulating the circadian system, which we're talking about, and possesses tumor inhibitory properties and shows its benefits on cardiovascular functions, blood pressure, and lipid and glucose metabolism. So the study from Frontiers talks about intestinal microbiota affecting melatonin secretion. Melatonin is abundant in the gastrointestinal tract, with approximately 10 to 100 times more melatonin in the gastrointestinal tissues than in the blood, and 400 times more in the gut than in the pineal gland. And where that was so amazing to me was that I'd never heard that before, but that's going to take us to certain nutrient benefits. And if it's in the gut, we're talking about nutrients, right? So animal foods are a good source of melatonin. Certain plant foods, fruits, grapes, cherries, and strawberries are among them. Vegetables, tomatoes, peppers were the most studied vegetables. Legumes, seeds, and nuts, and actually pistachios are high. Now, the reason why this was news to me is I would never have listed melatonin as a nutrient. Like when you're looking at nutrient levels on a person, melatonin is a hormone, but there are foods that help with the secretion of the melatonin by way of the gut. It's not going to happen in the brain. That's going to be something related to light. So interesting. But here's one little tip. If you're interested in like a snack before bed, and I'd say even if you're a protein type, when I mentioned that in the sleep prep checklist, and we'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow, even if you're a protein type, this could work. I mentioned a piece of meat, actually, animal protein before bed to help regulate your blood sugar, but it's pistachios are one of the highest nuts, has the highest content of melatonin. So very, very interesting. And would be a great before bed snack. Might help you sleep. You never know. So cortisol and the connection with weight loss. Moving on to the second hormone here. When cortisol levels remain elevated, the following side effects may occur in addition to weight loss, but high blood pressure, fatigue, changes in mood, irritability, flushed face, thinning skin, difficulty concentrating, insulin resistance. Have you ever heard of roid rage? You know, the bodybuilders, or even people who take a cortisone shot or take cortisone to help with pain in their body. I've had many clients go on those to a steroid to help with regulating that. What's weird about that, and what the health community that I am involved in, the functional medicine community, says is, you know, you're putting more cortisol into the body, which we actually make, and quite possibly that person's experiencing issues because their cortisol is already, their sleep cycles are off, so their cortisol is dysregulated. And probably, so roid rage means you have, you know, you're very irritable. You typically will gain weight, and all these other things that are mentioned here, flushed face and all of that. So I'm going to send an article by the Cleveland Clinic. It'll be in your replay email about cortisol. You can read about it and just read it and see if anything in there relates to you, as a way of understanding that, you know, what your sleep cycles, if they're off, which they might be more than likely because you're here, that this is what it's doing to the body. It's another one of those insidious things, but also very silent. We don't realize it's happening, like especially with insulin. We don't know we're insulin resistant unless we, you know, if we have our blood sugar checked and our blood sugar's off, and, you know, and we're addressing that. That's 100% lifestyle available to be addressed. Let's see. And you, so you're addressing your blood sugar possibly, but insulin resistance, well, when our cortisol's off, when the adrenal glands are pumping out too much cortisol, two things can happen. I mean, it's gonna it's gonna dysregulate your insulin and throw all of that off. And when too much insulin is being pumped out, all of a sudden the body goes, well, it just starts resisting it because it's been dysregulated for so long. Unlike the person who does the normal thing, and even if they eat something that spikes it, the insulin takes care of that, and that spike should return to normal if you're insulin sensitive. That's what we want. So, and then the other thing is the adrenal glands. People, I mean, you sometimes with when we're talking about cortisol and what it does at elevated levels for a long period of time, what it does, Cushing's syndrome is the result, the disease expression of that. You don't have to get to Cushing's syndrome to have these other issues that I just mentioned, those other dysregulations. So when we, you know, I'd say that the biggest, most important hormone dysregulation when your cortisol is elevated over a long period of time, when it's dysregulated, would be messing with insulin and blood sugar, and how that could be the biggest contributor to weight loss, to weight gain, or not being able to lose weight. So, and if we don't even look at specific hormones, just understand that when the body, think about that rock balance. Now that was based on 6 foundation health principles. But if we even look at melatonin and cortisol and that rock balance, if they're not off, and I don't mean that one is high and one is low, what I mean is that whole cycle is dysregulated, that you can end up with all sorts of issues, even besides weight gain. So this is a very scientific subject, and I tried to keep it very simple in terms of how what you can do to regulate. And I think that the Cleveland Clinic article is going to be simple and easy to read and understand, and maybe apply some of what they recommend in there. It's just going to be a supporting document for what we're doing here. Okay, tomorrow, this is day 3 wrapped up. That was pretty quick, huh? Look at, I'm only 25 minutes in. Wow. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about nutrition and the sleep connection. I'm going to address the metabolic typing. That's the type of diet that I recommend my clients. Well, actually, let me just take that back. Forget I just said that. That's the diet, the nutrition lifestyle I recommend for my clients, which you could take your metabolic type information, and you could do even a vegetarian version of it, but a paleo version of it, a Mediterranean diet version of it. If we were to look at it in its entirety, I'd say, because Mediterranean diet is very balanced, it's about a third, a third, a third, which means when we talk about the 3 macronutrients, proteins, fats, and carbs, it's about balanced that way. But I'm going to present plates, paper plates, that show what a plate should look like in terms of how much protein on your plate, how many carbs, and how much fat. Now, one thing you can start thinking about that is that the difference between a protein and a carb, most people will just put starchy or processed foods as carbs. But anything that doesn't have eyes, and that includes the processed stuff, is a carbohydrate. Anything with eyes or something that comes from an animal, like eggs, broth, even milk from a cow, those things are, anything with eyes is considered a protein. Most proteins carry fat. So a lot of your fat content that you're looking at, which we want to have, don't reduce your fat. Don't reduce your fat. Eat healthy fats and eat a healthy amount. You need it for brain health. Most proteins will contain a good percentage of the fat. But if you eat, like, say, you're gonna have a turkey breast and a salad. For me, I have to add a little olive oil onto the turkey breast to balance the proteins, fats, and carbs on my plate. In addition to what I put, the olive oil I put on the salad. So that, because the white meat, it has less fat than the dark meat. You wouldn't have to do it probably with the dark meat. Okay, that's a little sidebar because we have a little bit of time. So let me see over here, Facebook, if we have any viewers or any questions. Nothing right now. So put your questions in the email reply if you like that, or if you're going to watch over here on Facebook, it's going to be immediately available after this session. Put your comments in there. Even if it's not a question, I would love to know how these things are working for you. If you notice anything, because some of the things could be very instantaneous, like putting on those blue blockers. I told you the client who started wearing them, and the first evening she felt her body calm down and be ready for bed, just because she shut out the blue light. So, all right, have a wonderful day. This is Wednesday Hump Day, and we'll see you tomorrow, Thursday. We'll see you then. Bye.